This is going to be a recap of the Q3 earnings at Nano Dimension today. It was a rather short earnings call as we only had one person asking questions. There was a total of 3 questions asked. Even though there weren't too many questions, I do believe these questions were insightful. There might be a few things and terms maybe in the interview you guys might have not understood. Things like Mil-Spec and the little bits and pieces of the merger that they were talking about. And for those of you who did show up to the live stream, I want to say thank you guys for showing up to the live stream. It was kind of confusing to put everything together, but I managed to put everything together and make it look nice. And the fact that the live chat was pretty alive and full of useful information, I think that's a bonus. But anyway, as far as the recap goes, when Yoav Stern did start talking, he immediately sounded confident in Nano Dimension.
As expected, starting the beginning of this year when Corona erupted and I said this year is going to be nothing to write home about, it is indeed results as much as financial results or revenue are nothing to write home about, notwithstanding the fact that after the close of the quarter we actually started to see machines being sold again. It's not in the third quarter but rather in the beginning of the fourth, mostly in the APAC area as an early birds. So it is seemingly starting to recover, but on the other side, in Europe they went into a second curfew, so everything is closing down, if not closed already for a while. And in the United States, frankly, there's no waves. It's just a slowly growing tsunami, which is causing, differentially, depends on where in the country, things not to work, especially when you deal with people buying our machines, when nobody is ready to risk, and in many cases, they have a curfew on the CapEx as well.
He started by saying the financial results were starting to pick up and are beginning to show in the fourth quarter rather than the third quarter. So everything ending in September was still slow, but he's saying October started to pick up. And currently, Europe and the US are slow in recovery right now with CV-19, so they're slowly resuming their capital expenditures. He didn't really mention the Asia Pacific, but if we look at the most recent previous SEC filings, they do state that they are looking to increase business in the Asia Pacific before anywhere else.
Yes, from the other side, we started Nano Services, NanoS, and our services are slowly growing because people are using our services, but the numbers are still small, and therefore we took a decision, which you all know about it if you read our news releases over the last 3 months.
He also mentioned Nano Services, which I'm glad he did. I was curious about how the sales would be for Nano Services. He told us the numbers are growing. Although small, they are growing. The sales being in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and not quite the millions yet, but just versus tens of thousands when it first started, getting into the hundreds of thousands in just a few months, I think is a good sign.
Not to overspend on marketing, positioning, go-to-market and sales, because this is like driving bicycles and turning your legs very, very fast, but backwards, because there's nobody home to buy. We're selling hardware, very, very sophisticated machines, and this is not software. You can't work from home. You have to be in the laboratories. You have to be on the production floors.
So Yoav Stern did make a better, clearer point about why they weren't spending money on go-to-market and marketing for their business. They're selling very sophisticated hardware, and unlike software, they can't operate these things from home. The labs and factories where these machines are located are not open right now, and therefore they cannot be operated.
We have also machines we sold, we've been paid, and we didn't even install yet in different parts in the world because the customers which paid are not allowed to open the offices for us to come and install the machine.
He also mentioned that they've even sold machines prior that they haven't even been able to deliver yet because the offices that they were sold to are not even allowed to open yet.
So instead of spending money, too much money on that, we decided that we're spending it on product development in order to accelerate. So like a slingshot effect, when the market recovers, which are my working assumption, which is as good as anybody else, but I assume it's going to be the middle of 2021. And we heard about the vaccination already, and which I thought and said that this is going to start the recovery, especially because of the psychological part of it, which is a big part of this whole pandemic anyhow. So until then, we are hoping that what we are investing, based on your support and the money we raised in the acceleration of the product, will take us to a very, very good spot when the CapEx is going to be released, when the machines are going to be purchased again, it will be a different machine, which we will release around that time, better machine, and then we have a next generation machine coming based on the investments we're doing today.
So instead of marketing to new customers right now, they're focused on expanding their product development instead. And while sales are still suppressed, they do see a form of recovery by the middle of 2021, which is only about 7 months away from now. That's when he expects the capital expenditure constraints are going to be lifted for most companies, and by then, hopefully, they'll have more sophisticated hardware, a better printer, and the next generation of Dragonfly printers that will essentially propel them into a higher possibility of growth due to the innovation of their machines. So we just have to let Nano Dimension product development and research team to do their thing. We can't get too ahead of ourselves because he's not expecting this until the end of 2022.
As well, but not before the beginning of 2022. So we are very, very strong, very strong feeling about our success. I'm looking around for the M&A, as you know, and things are slowly developing there, but more importantly than just closing the transaction, which we'll eventually do. We are seeing what's happening in the market because of the research we're doing, looked at 50 companies, and I believe that our advantage is clear. I'm starting to see signs of competition, which I'm very happy about, but they are far behind. So I think we have about a 2 years runway, which I mentioned, 1.5 years to 2 years. And that will enable us beginning in mid-year, to start to see result and positioning in the market. We have very large institutions that are potential buyers, both of our machines and of our company, that are working with us on very special projects.
So this was actually mentioned in the call several times about mergers and acquisitions. He believes the current advantage of Nano Dimension is very clear, and he sees the competition being very far behind, essentially putting them in a better position in the market for 3D printed circuit boards. According to Yoav Stern, there are large institutions looking at buying their machines and their company. So in the case of a merger happening, I believe what would happen is whatever the sales price of the company is, it would be distributed among shareholders evenly after the sale. Shares would be liquidated and turned into cash, and essentially you would get equal parts of the sales price. So the one person that did call in questions had 3 questions. The first one being, why is cash burn so high versus the previous quarters? The second question being about Nano Services and what kind of sales it's producing for Nano Dimension. And the third and probably most insightful question in the interview is, what kind of materials is Nano Dimension using if we won't see Mil-Spec or military grade until 2022?
And today's first question comes from Puneet Maheshwari with HRS. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Puneet Maheshwari. So why is this difference of why the run rate is so high from the last quarter? And
I don't know what you're talking about, but we don't spend $4 million a quarter. We never spend $1 million a quarter of cash. When I joined the company in January, the company was spending around $1 million a month, and it went down from that because I cut expenses initially, so I went down to $800,000 a month, which is $2.4 million a quarter. And now, once we raised the money, of course we accelerated it, because the whole idea about investing in product development is you invest, and you invest, it's expenses.
Yeah.
You don't capitalize it. So we're now, if we're close to $4 million a quarter, which is $1.25 million a month, trust me, it's going to be higher than that as we move forward. I am going to take care of it, because this is what I mean by investing in accelerating the technology.
He started off by saying there was $1 million in spending in January per month. He then brought it down to $800,000 a month by cutting some unnecessary costs. He has since accelerated spending with product development, which is necessary for developing their technologies. And the main point that Yoav Stern makes here is that investors should expect higher research and product development costs. This is how they're going to scale out their technologies and come up with newer, better stuff. And by stuff, I mean highly advanced 3D printed circuit boards.
If you can help me, if you can highlight the number of Nano Services, NanoS.
We don't publish the Nano Services separately, but it's as I told you, it's non-material. Actually, it is material when the revenue is low. It becomes material. It's in the range of hundreds of thousands, not in the range of millions. We started it about 3 months ago, so it depends what you call material, but it's definitely hundreds of thousands, not millions.
As far as Nano Services, he's saying that they expect the Nano Services to increase. Currently, they're sitting in the hundreds of thousands in sales in the first 3 months. So now let's get into the more interesting materials question.
What kind of materials they are using till now if we are developing Mil-Spec by 2022?
That's a very, very good and smart question, actually. The answer is as follows. As long as they're using the machines for prototyping and proof of concept, they can use it with materials that are not standing by Mil-Spec, which is our materials today, because it's not going into the final product.
So for defense contractor, this is only for prototyping and not for small batch production as of now, right? If I'm not wrong.
That is right. The machine can do small batch production, but as long as the materials don't withstand the spec for the specific company. Now, having said that, if you're an engineer, you probably know that some defense companies will still take non-Mil-Spec products if need be, because the Mil-Spec is not a digital 1-0 binary. Mil-Spec is a set of 20, 30, 40 guidelines, and sometimes they'll take certain materials that don't stand 100% in Mil-Spec. Our materials are getting slowly closer, so if they have a certain application that can withstand lower than Mil-Spec, they sometimes take it because they don't have a choice, and then it will go into production. But the big move, what I call inflection point, where our machine go into production, will be on per vertical basis, when we will fit commercial spec, then industrial spec, then Mil-Spec in the specific verticals, and then the machine will go into production. That's the inflection point.
So military spec or military grade materials have to meet a certain specification and guideline to be applicable in the printed circuit boards or electronics that they use. But for Nano Dimension, it doesn't really matter because the guidelines are flexible when it comes to prototyping. They don't have to have mil-spec materials in prototyping or insignificant electronics. And in some situations, it's their only choice, so they have to go with the lower than mil-spec printed circuit boards. So the inflection point, according to Yoav Stern, is whenever they can fit commercial, industrial, and mil-spec materials into the machines, therefore making them more available to more customers in the commercial, industrial, and military spaces. It would be more applicable for larger scale prototyping, and there would be more options out there for potential customers. But overall, Yoav Stern sounds very confident in the business and their position right now in the market. And he did make a point at the end that the lack of questions in the live earnings call was due to the fact that investors are clear in what kind of position Nano Dimension is in. But maybe next time I'll hop in on the live earnings call. So if you guys have any questions that maybe you wanted to ask and you want the chance to get your voice heard, just let me know in the comments and I will consider those whenever the next earnings comes back. But anyways, thank you guys for watching the video. I appreciate everyone who showed up to the live stream. So if you find information like this really useful to you, you should consider liking the video and you should even consider subscribing. And don't forget to hit the bell notification to get notified when I make videos just like this one. But anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you to my new subscribers and my new supporters, and I'll see you in the next video.